Hello and welcome to the Innings Break Podcast. Today we're on episode 4 and we have a very special episode for all of those people on our wonderful subreddit. Today we're going to be interviewing the mods who make this wonderful place all, moderated and feasible and accessible for all of us. So we have some very special guests today, one being Rom7 and the other one being Rufus. Of course, they are both moderators. And we also have Footil, who normally is a broadcaster, but he's donning the moderator hat today. We've also asked one of the OG mods, EyesAllOnFire, to answer some of our burning questions, and hopefully we can get around to that. But first of all, Rufus and Roms, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi everyone, you know me by the username Roms7. You could call me Romsy for this podcast, I guess. It's just easier to say. I'm from Pakistan, and of course I support Pakistan as well as England as my second team since childhood, by the way. My favorite cricket memory has to be Saeed Anwar's 194 against India in Chennai. Reason because I watched it live and it was one of those things that I had not seen a score that big happen in front of TV. But yeah, it's one of my most favorite cricket memories. My favorite cricket player of all time has to be Shoaib Akhtar. The reason pace is pace. You know, I love fast bowlers, and there is something about a fast bowler running in from long off, and absolutely, bowling all those fast yorkers and bouncers. Absolutely love that stuff. And although he's been shit posting a lot on YouTube lately, but I still like him as a bowler and as a character on the field. And you could still see that the aggression he wants to have for the new bowlers. Like he wants them to come in and bowl a few bounces and break the ribs and all that sort of stuff. So I love that about him. In my opinion, the most overrated player of all time. It can be a little bit difficult, but if you just asking about just the Pakistan fans, because I've interacted with them a lot, I would say Shahid Afridi would be the most overrated cricketer of all time. But if you are talking someone recent, I would say, in my opinion, Nathan Lyon is quite overrated.
Ooh.
Thank you.
First of all, Shahid Afridi
Very
coming from a
controversial.
Pakistani fan.
Confirmed. I said Shahid Afridi is the most overrated player.
That's not very
Wow.
controversial, I don't think. To be honest.
Is that right? Like even from Pakistan fan standard, is that not very controversial?
It's Pakistan. As I said, from Pakistani fans' point of view, like you would still see there's still masses, still fans of Afridi, and he had these bits and pieces, and the performances that kept him going. But of course, he didn't apply himself as a batsman, and then later on in his career, he was a late bloomer as a good bowler, which I think he was quite good as a start at the start as well. But he just didn't apply himself as much because he could have been ahead of his time and become a handy leg spinner in the ODI cricket before it was cool.
Right, that's interesting because I thought when we said Shahid Afridi, a lot of people would say, "Oh no, India bias. Oh, England bias." No one would agree. But if it's coming from your end, then maybe we were correct. I think he definitely had his moments, and I think that the whole Shahid Afridi brand was more important than Shahid Afridi, the cricketer, which is not a bad thing, I don't think, because he was a very good marketer for the Pakistan cricket team at the time. I think that was kind of needed.
Yeah, that's true. But coming to the point, brand, there are many Indian cricketers who would qualify under that tagline, who have their own brand but do not live up to it. maybe one would be Shikhar Dhawan. Of late, he has a brand of his own, but I don't think he has been living up to it for some time now.
I think ODI wise, he's good enough, but test wise, yeah, he's been only good at home and nothing special away at all. And yeah, I think he's old. I think he's old now as well, right? Because he came onto the scene when he was like 27, I think, in the Champions Trophy 2013, and then he did really well. I think he's done his job as an opener. I don't think we can be too critical of him, but yeah, I think now it's starting to fade.
I'd actually argue it just as in one-day cricket, he's actually slightly underrated because a lot of the attention goes to obviously Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, but Shikhar Dhawan often. I mean, it's true that ICC event stuff where he really pulls through. So he does seem to contribute when it really matters in one-day cricket. He was a bit of a late starter. I think he debuted when he was about 27 or so. In tests, he's probably a bit of a flat track bully. But yeah, I think in one day cricket, he doesn't always get the credit he deserves as a really fine player, even if he's not.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
T20 wise, I don't rate him very highly, but
he's too slow.
Yeah, too slow. But consistent, I think he's a good IPL player, probably not good enough for the international stage for T20, but he's been given a lot of chances, which kind of annoys me. But yeah.
I'll introduce myself.
Sure. Go ahead, Rufus.
Yeah, this is a plowed across without saying who I am. So yes, I am. My Reddit username is RufusSG, although you can call me Rufus because I obviously have no concern for privacy. And when I was choosing my Reddit username, just decided to put my name in it. So that's what you can call me. And yep, I'm also a moderator on the subreddit. Favorite cricket memory of all time. I mean, as an England fan, which is where I live and who I support mainly. My favorite cricket memory, whilst the 2019 World Cup victory, watching that on the telly was obviously really cool. My favorite personal memory would have to be 2005 Ashes, when I was as the Trent Bridge test coming to its conclusion. I was at Colchester watching a game between, I think, Essex and Hampshire or something with my dad. Boiling hot day, and I remember all the people in the crowd around us were following the game on the radio, test match. There were just cheers coming out every time like a run was scored, and when the game was finished, everyone was cheering and shouting. It was great, and it was great fun. Essex, I think, won the one day league on that day as well, so it was a good day all around. That's probably my favourite cricket memory, as well as obviously the match associated with was pretty good as well. My favourite cricket player of all time. I had to think a lot about this. I think just from England, I would probably say James Anderson. Slightly lazy choice, but he has continued to just get better and better and improve significantly in all areas of his game throughout his career. And he's taken a ton of wickets and so smooth and controlled and intelligent at what he does now. So I think, whilst earlier in his career, you might have thought he was a bit unfulfilled. I think he's really pushed himself to the absolute limits of what he can do now, with his fitness being so excellent for a fast bowler as well. I think from all countries, my absolute favourite cricketer, maybe just as a cricketer, maybe not the personality, but I'd have to probably say Shane Warne. Obviously, he was obviously fantastically good to start at what he did. But like the thing that I really enjoyed about him is how he was thinking like 5 steps ahead of everyone all the time. Like, you could tell a good number of his wickets were down to reputation as much as anything else, simply because he seemed to have this sixth sense of how to play, not just play the umpires, and how to psychologically support the batsman to whatever it was he wanted to do. And I think that's something I just haven't seen any other player come close to achieving. And it was just, it made me sort of when he wasn't doing it against England anymore, you could kind of appreciate just how fantastically intelligent a player he was. And if now he's mostly turns up on the cricket websites with his various hot takes and ludicrous suggestions. It makes you forget how smart a player and how well he used his skills. To be honest. Most overrated player of all time. I wasn't sure about this. This may be a bit controversial. I'm going to say that Mark Waugh was slightly overrated, personally. Very elegant, very stylish, did play lots of very good innings. But in the team he had around him, I think they offered, I think, a lot more of substance in performances. And I think Mark Waugh is kind of the same thing that Ian Bell gets quite a lot, in that the style of his play often increased the perception of him beyond what he was achieving at times.
That's a great comparison, actually. I really liked it. I also thought that the amount of the top order that Australia had at that point, it was just so good that every time someone would just pitch in, and he's just considered as one of the invincible, but he might not be as good as them.
Yeah, I mean, if it was put it like this, if I had to choose someone just to watch as a spectator or whatever, between like the two Waugh brothers, you'd probably choose Mark. But in terms of actual substance and actual achievements, I'd pick Steve 10 times out of 10. He averaged about 10 more than Mark, and he was a fantastic captain. So I think, Steve Waugh was definitely the better of the two Waugh brothers. And I think, whilst Mark Waugh was certainly a very good player, I think perception is perhaps slightly better than it deserves to be.
Yeah, it's also the aesthetics that you see. Mark Waugh's cover drives, and you really like it, and him catching in the slip cordon.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that as well. But at the same time, you got Steve Waugh, who's not seemingly not doing much, but when the time comes, he's actually there to dig in and bat with the tail and put up a good score in the last 10. What he did in last years of cricket in ODI cricket.
No, absolutely.
Mark Waugh was such a bland kind of personality in such a spicy team. Yeah, I would feel like, I mean, he's definitely good player for any other team standard. Maybe like when you think about it right now, when Rufus said his name, like, wow, was he carried over because of by his brother, just because of his brother, he's being carried over from that long. But I remember he was a pretty good slip catcher.
Yep, that's what I was about to say. That's what kept him in the team. When his batting wasn't excellent, the fact that he caught so well off Shane Warne, in particular, that's kind of what kept him in the team. If he wasn't batting so well.
Yeah, I think and I remember he was one of the top catchers, highest catches of all time, when he was playing. So being there at slip, it's usually pretty good for him, and to catch those low balls, turning balls, edges. I know it's very difficult coming back from a wicketkeeper, but I would still be curious the justification of him being carried on for so long with such an average batting display, just being because of his slip catching.
I remember it was in 2000. I mean, this, even though I wasn't around for this, I'm thinking about the history I've read. In about 2002, both the Wars had a lot of. They'd been out of form for a while, and there was lots of pressure on them for their places. And I think when Australia, and both lost their place in the one-day side, and I think Steve was sacked as captain. I think in late 2002, they went to the UAE to play Pakistan. They were both pretty much on their last notice. And then I think Mark Waugh failed every innings and he was dropped forever. And then Steve Waugh made a century in Sharjah, which resurrected his career, and then went on to the Ashes after that and made his famous century at Sydney. And then in the year before his retirement, he went on to average about 50. So the very last he pulled through, and Mark didn't.
Right, so the last images that we have of him are him being really, really consistent and playing above his ability. So, yeah, that's probably why we have a lot of people have a biased view of his performances.
I think Steve had a lot more substance to his actual performances, which I don't think, even if he was a lot less appealing a stroke player than Mark was.
Sure. Okay, well, thanks, Roms and Rufus, for your introductions. Foothill gave his last week, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. So normally we would do a kind of structure to our podcasts where we would talk about the shit post of the week, the stats post of the week, etc. But because today is a very special episode and the mods have kindly given us their time, we're going to be doing it more of an interview style format. So the first question we have of today's segment, I could say, is what entails moderation? How would you describe your job? So if one of you could go ahead and give us a little summary, that would be absolutely great.
So just putting it simply, it's mostly about keeping the subreddit clean. You got your spammers, you got your trolls, you got people going off at each other, and you got people asking for questions and that sort of stuff. So basically, it's all about making sure that the main point that is the start of the discussion is cricket, and people don't derail discussions and that sort of stuff. There are other technical aspects to it. For example, the banners or the flares and that sort of stuff. I'm not familiar with that. So basically, it's just you just keep the sub clean for every time. When you wake up in the morning, you see the first three posts, and you think that all three of them are really really good, like as good as each other, although they've got different upvotes. I think that would be a good day for moderation. Like that would tell you that the mods are doing a good job. And I think that just before the corona pandemic, um, whether it be the stat posts, whether it be just a discussion, it was always good to see the first 2 or 3 posts of the subreddit, because that's usually what I do. I don't have a life or anything, so I just check our cricket first thing in the morning. Also, I would say that a big part of moderation is that you make sure that you're not biased towards a nationality, or a certain group of users, or a certain user even, because there are other 3 or 4 people, and they see everything you do. Basically, any mod can see any activity performed by any mod. So they can oversee if they're being biased or not, which might, which a lot of people not agree with. People just say that mods are just all friends, and they spend a lot of time together, and they just say everything's right, although it's, even if it's not right at some point. So that sort of thing. And I would say that when a person comes in to ask a question about their comment being removed or them being banned, a moderator should be able to justify their action and respond to that. And becoming a moderator itself, I don't think that there's a certain criteria that you would fill in, but it's just that you're not posting flame bait comments, basically, or you're not trying to spam, or you're not trying to start shit in different threads. If you're not doing that, then we'll consider you as a as an opportunity to be a mod. But yeah, there's nothing specific, I'd say, to become a moderator. Just be there and discuss cricket, and that's it.
Awesome. So our good friend Angry Lettuce would be out of the equation because of his regular flaming of Kohli and Cody bait and trying to get us riled up. But that's okay. He's a good guy, and maybe he isn't suited for mod, but he can still be a good person. But thank you very much for that summary, Roms. That's awesome. Rufus, do you have anything to add to that?
Not masses. I think Rom's covered it very well. A lot of what we do as part of our role as moderators is really trivial. So people don't often realise there is just a lot of removing spam, removing duplicate posts, actually, takes up a lot more of my life than I wish it did. But it's not. A lot of it is just spring cleaning, basically.
Gotcha. I have a question. Would you hold it against a user if they were to do a duplicate post? Because obviously, when they post it, they don't realize that it's probably been posted before. Would you say that's on the user's side of responsibility?
I mean, I certainly don't hold it against users who post duplicate things. Because I've done it myself in the past, where I've tried to post something and then I've realised that someone's posted a different article from a different site which makes the same thing. So, we certainly don't hold that against users. I mean, it helps us if people take the effort to check, new or whatever, to see what's been posted or what hasn't. But it's definitely not a big transgression for people to make if they post a duplicate. We just remove it, and that's fine, really. Just avoid doing it as much as possible.
I think there's been a few instances where people made a duplicate post and we let it stay because the amount of effort they put in was a lot. For example, an article comes out about something and then a user starts a discussion about the same topic. So if both of them create like a good discussion and the number of comments is good, we let them both stay basically. But it happens very rarely. Also, there are some times when the posts, the timing, the difference in between the posting of two posts is just like literally seconds. So someone could have posted something 20 seconds ago, and then someone posted it 5 seconds ago, and then you have to remove the one which is the newer one. So it happens a lot. Sometimes people think people are making a post, and there isn't any post, but by the time they post it, someone's already posted it. So that happens a lot as well.
Gotcha. Perfect. So I think you guys pretty much introduced the topic really, really well. Next up, we can.
I have a question. Sorry, Rab. I have a question, follow-up question on this one. Rom's mentioned that one part of moderation is, banning trolls and flame bait users and all that stuff. What is the concrete policy on banning trolls, and how do you handle it? Kind of, there have been questions and criticism of the mods for banning certain users. I won't name them particularly, but they were favoring one particular cricketer a lot in their discussions and posts. So, what's the policy? How do you handle it? And for how long do they get banned, or is it a kind of a permanent ban or something?
I mean, in terms of policy that we follow for that, it's normally a repeat. We look for like repeated patterns of behavior and stuff in mostly. So if someone does something for the first time, saying X, spamming everywhere, saying X or whatever, they'll probably, depending on how severe it is, they might receive a warning or something. If they keep doing it again and again, despite us telling them to pack it in, that's when we will probably likely to ban them, because it's just they're obviously not learning and contributing to actually useful discussion at a point. So there's not usually I wouldn't say there was a 100% cast iron policy where it's all the same experience. It's looking for patterns of behavior where people clearly aren't learning from the warnings we're giving them. So that's how I go about it anyway.
Yes, and also I would like to expand on the point that that the question was asked about, that a user might be biased talking about the same person again and again. And in my personal opinion, it's okay if someone has an opinion and they keep repeating it, but at the same time not spamming it. If someone says, "Hey, I like Kevin Peterson," and just every now and then he would just say, "I like Kevin Peterson," or just comparing it, a certain post about a different cricketer with Kevin Peterson. That is fine in my personal. But when they try to get the reactions out of people, that's where it goes wrong. You could temporarily ban them or just give them a warning that you're doing this and this and you shouldn't be doing this. And if they keep doing it afterwards as well, then you go ahead and ban them.
Sure. Okay, so that was a pretty good distinction between what is acceptable and what is not. So basically, it's obviously everyone has their favorite cricketers. It's not a crime, but when you use that kind of favoritism to kind of bait other people into having a reaction over and over again, that's when obviously you guys have to step in.
So when you say you're mod, like what kind of god powers you guys have versus like what us regular cricket subredditors don't have it? Like, do you guys can see what all we do? Like, you have your webcam open on us, or is
Not
it something
quite.
like just, or is it just like something very simple?
Off the top of my head, what moderators, if you made moderator of a subreddit, for a start, we obviously can remove comments ourselves if they're reported to us, or if we just don't like the user. That and we can also we can see stuff that's been removed. We can I think that's the main thing. We've got our own like mod logs and things where we see what's been reported, and we can work through those step by step, clean the subreddits up. Obviously, we can ban people. Aside from that, I don't think our experience is massively different to regular users. To be honest, we just have a bit more. Obviously, we can ban users and remove stuff that is breaks rules or whatever, but it's nothing massively outstanding.
I think Rufus just missed a point that the moment you become a mod, you have to sacrifice your soul to Satan.
Right.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, you see, I forgot about that. Yeah. As we know, a moderators doing anything on Reddit, as has long been drilled into us, shows that the police state has arrived. So we have to kind of be careful about how we do things. It's truly the end times. But yeah, there's always like rituals and stuff. But yeah, I was sworn to secrecy on those.
Okay. We won't press you
Yeah.
too much. Would you say it's it affects your regular Reddit experience? Would you say it's more of a responsibility more than a privilege, or is there what do you just view as both, for example?
I mean, personally, I find it doesn't affect my own personal browsing experience of Reddit very much. I mean, I often contribute to conversations regularly anyway, so I mean, maybe there's a bit more responsibility in the sense that if some things do get out of hand in a thread you're in, it's then that it's partially your responsibility as an individual to try and resolve it instead of just sitting back and hoping it solves itself. I feel it's not an overwhelming responsibility, and I think it's things I can easily manage.
Yeah, I personally I would think that whenever in an India Pakistan match, whenever it gets spicy in there, there are times that I might want to comment something, but I might not, because people might think that I'm trying to bait them or trying to get a reaction out of them, although I'm just trying to shitpost.
Sure.
Yeah.
In that regard, I think that my Reddit user has changed, and there are times that you absolutely don't agree with the way the discussion is going to, but you have to be very open-minded and try to be very non-biased, because it's a very sensitive subject. Whenever it comes up, Pakistan India matches, there's something going on. There's always something going on.
There's always a bit of
I don't
tension.
think there has been. Yes, there hasn't been a match thread between Pakistan and India where things didn't go spicy, or someone didn't get banned, or but yeah, it can also happen in talking as a neutral. For example, I think 2016-17 Australia tour of India. I think on the first day of that tour, we banned around 9 people, and that was just the first day of the tour. Because people were just going at each other and trying to troll in the match threads. Um, and so you're just here to read the shit post, have a laugh, and there's this guy who's trying to spam. There's this guy who's just calling Australian something, and there's some Australian calling an Indian something. So yeah, in that sort, it has it is different than another user, but overall, yeah, I wouldn't say it's that different than another.
Sure. Right.
I'd like to answer that too. So from the perspective as a new mod, I'm actually the least experienced mod. I've only got the job a couple of months ago. I feel very conscious because of that. I don't want any of my posts or my comments being reported. So I've had to change the way that I write a little bit. I try not to get into any confrontations and things like that where I might have done in the past, but I'm sure that'll pass once I get more sort of accustomed to being a moderator. At the moment, it's just I feel like I need to set a good example myself. So that has changed the way that I behave.
Gotcha. So I believe that Arg has a comment from the moderator EyesAllOnFire in regards to banning. Arg, do you want to talk about that right now?
Yeah. Okay. So EyesAllOnFire says that mostly the ban policy is what's on the wiki. Anything blatantly racist or blatant troll accounts are usually easy to spot and is just an instant permaban, as well as anything breaking the big site-wide rules such as doxing. But he believes that that's extremely rare on the subreddit. He refused to comment on specific accounts that I mentioned, but he generally says that contributors aren't banned for good unless they have had multiple chances and they have been reported by others very, very frequently. Yeah, so okay, I'll ask a follow-up question. Uh, Since cricket draws millions of extremely passionate spectators, something Rom's mentioned, that passion shows up in the match threads as well, especially India Pakistan or India Australia or maybe Australia England threads. These match threads do get ugly, as you mentioned. How do you handle the constant stream of information that comes in, and how is it possible to clean that, because there's a lot of shit that's going on in match sets and it's near impossible to fix things that are going on there. There are of course many trolls there, so how do you make sure that such things don't happen for the complete match thread or for subsequent match threads?
I think reporting plays a big part of handling the match thread. As soon as something, as soon as something, a post or a comment gets reported, easier it is to get the mod's attention. Most of the times, at least one of the mods will be in the match thread. Uh, Before the start of an India Pakistan match thread, I personally uh, put a pre-warning before the start of the match so people don't forget it, and the people who are thinking about it don't do it at that point. But if in the middle of the match someone starts doing something, we could also, which starts a chain of comments doing the same thing again and again. We could actually leave a mod comment saying that, hey guys, this is not cool, please stop doing that. And then once the warning is there, then whatever person tries to do it again, we just probably just temporarily ban them, because at that point they're just trying to spam in the match thread. A good example of that would be when people are trying to get to a certain number of comments, um, and they just keep posting like random alphabetical letters to get to 50,000, or 60,000 or 70,000. So very recently we decided that we're just gonna lock the match threads right after the match is finished, and the discussion is now going to the post match threads, which was very effective and really stopped people from just commenting shit to get to a number of comments.
All right. So one of the questions that we want to talk, I think it was curtailed to what um the God power question I had was, uh, how much of a mod abuse issue have you guys seen in past, especially on our cricket? Like, have you had seen any moderators who have misused their powers, or was that somebody like we have been such a good lucky bunch of people that everything that we have done is within the laws of limits of the Reddit rules?
I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I mean, unless you count my hilarious flares on certain threads as mod abuse when I'm bored and running out of ways to tell people that you need to try harder with your titles, please. Otherwise, I'll keep this up. But if you're just saying, bruh before some image, some picture you've posted, would help if you were a bit more descriptive. So, as that counts as mod abuse on my own part, I can't think of anything. Thankfully, I think we're all pretty responsible, for the most part.
I think pretty much all the mods are very, very unbiased. Now, you could believe it or not, but they are. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Like, the mod EyesAllOnFire. He is a very cool and calm guy. Like, you cannot piss that guy off. But the
Wow.
moment he bans someone, you don't even go to their profile to check what they did wrong. You just know that that person did something wrong. Like, there's no way he's banning someone without a perfect reason. So also the going back to the point that I said earlier, the mods can actually see what other mods are doing. So if one mod is being unbiased or doing um, mod abuse sort of thing where it's just removing comments of a certain user or a certain community, they're answerable for that. And people ask us all the time, like, why was my post removed, or why was my comment removed, and that sort of stuff. If you are a biased person, then it will just show up straight away when you're moderating a subreddit. There's no way it can get hidden because there's like 5 people, 6 people
Gotcha.
seeing the same thing you are.
Right. That makes sense. Well, I think that was pretty well handled, and I think you guys do a good job on that. Personally, here's another bit of a curveball question, and this probably is a bit more related to the current times because of the coronavirus. So, a few weeks ago or a few months ago now, when the corona came around, you opened the Reddit to be accept shit posts, if I'm not mistaken. Where do you draw the line between a shit post and a normal post normally? Because I think that's quite a thin line. Sometimes you could just say, "Oh, it's a bit of banter. You should let that slide." I think that's probably where the greyish area of your job comes into play. What do you guys think? Maybe.
It's a little difficult because whilst we obviously did agree to allow things like memes or whatever. However, from a personal perspective, some of the memes that people have been posting, if I'm honest, are absolutely awful. Like, come on, guys, you can lift your game a bit here. If you make me laugh, I'm going to be a lot more lenient. But I don't know. I think generally, I mean, obviously, a lot of stuff, lots of the stuff we get is stuff that would have otherwise been posted on, cricket shit post or whatever. So I don't know. I feel like I want to. If this is more my personal view, I think it's good if we can avoid absolute, bottom of the barrel, like troll cricket stuff with watermarks on and stuff, which just was really sort of really lazy stuff. But
I'd agree. Yeah.
well, like troll cricket Facebook stuff, like like this if only true Kohli fans or whatever remember this innings, like if you agree kind of stuff, which is just not what we to promote in a sense, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's very much
Yeah,
YouTube or Facebook related, right? There's a bit of a standard difference between the stuff we get on there and the stuff we want to keep on the Reddit of cricket. So, yeah, I completely see that.
it's also the amount of effort they put into the post. Like a shit post could be a very high effort post as well. A lot of people think that all shit posts are the same, but they're not. There are levels
There's a
to it.
science to this.
Yeah, yes. It's if you we have relaxed rule 7. We have relaxed the memes. We have not relaxed the low effort part. The low effort part still applies. If your meme is low effort, it will be removed. Um,
Yeah.
if it's just as Rufus said, if it's just Facebook stuff,
Will
just try
admit,
to just
so I
yes.
will
It's
admit,
if it's just sorry. Go ahead.
sorry, I will admit it in especially now it can be a bit subjective because I'm joking about whether or not it actually makes me laugh or not or something. But I think it's kind of it's the discretion we kind of have to use to a point because obviously we do want more content, and even some of the a lot of the memes have ends up ironically ended up promoting some really good discussion. So we are kind of using our own judgment a bit on this. I mean, when we're talking about making memes for crying out loud, it's definitely not an exact science the way I see it, but yeah, I think it just about works. I think, and hopefully people understand to a point if we why some memes we might keep and others we don't for whatever.
I think Foothill can elaborate a bit more on it because he joined as a moderator a couple of months back, right around the time this coronavirus thing started. So I think maybe he might have a better idea of what the sub has become suddenly.
Yeah, I think the real sort of issue right now is Rule 8. So the rule about not posting copyright violation.
That's a good
Due
call.
to, I guess, the shutdown, people have been wanting to watch, highlights videos or full match replays of sort of old games. And the problem with that is we just can't sanction it on the Reddit
No.
unless it comes from an official source. And
I
certainly
think this
that's
is a
been
real
my
issue.
major action.
I think it's
Yeah, that's
actually.
been what I've been. Sorry, Rufus, go ahead.
No, I think you bring up a very important point in that the issue of highlights is something I think is a real shame for about what the subreddit can be used for. Because I mean, the reason that we clamped down more on that was I think it was about a year ago during England's tour of the West Indies. I think it was. We suddenly started getting a load of copyright complaints from the admins, and sort of entire match threads were being completely nuked from the site. Like they were just completely gone. You couldn't even find them in archives or anything like that. So we were very concerned about what the implications of that would be if this kept happening. So we had no choice really but to because obviously kind of playing a bit of a guessing game a lot of the times with admins and what they allow on certain sports subreddits and what they don't. We had to tighten that rule up quite a lot because, and as you mentioned, stick to highlights from official official YouTube channels or the BCCI's website or whatever. But I do think that's a real shame because these kind of forums are where people like to watch highlights and yeah, it's hard to. It's a real shame if we have to take down a video which is from Robolinda or whatever. But if it's not an official source, then we just it's not a risk that we're entirely comfortable with having sometimes. But I do think it's a real shame because it's something that people like to use forums like this for anyway.
Interesting thing about that is that when we got all those messages from the admins, I just went back to see which of my posts were removed, all the videos and all the GIFs that I used to post back in the
Yeah.
day. and streamable links. Most of them were dead. But GIFs, it was very random that which ones they chose to remove and which ones they didn't. There wasn't. I can't say that they removed everything from the Australian Cricket Board, or they removed everything, all the content from the Indian cricket, or the Pakistani cricket, or that sort of stuff. It was very random. And I used to also post on front foot porn back in the day, and I have heaps of posts over there as well. And just when I thought, I think this is about a month ago or so, just about when I thought that they might have relaxed doing all the stuff they were doing, removing all the videos. I got a message saying that my GIF that I posted has been removed, and I should probably talk to a lawyer, for a legal whatever. I don't know what it was. I read it like half sleep, in half my sleep, so I have no idea what it said. But I just closed
Quite
it
severe.
straight away. I'm like,
Extraordinary.
yeah, yeah. This was a month ago or so. Yeah, they're actually still removing all the stuff on people's profile, and quite a few times I have thought that maybe they actually have someone on the subreddit doing the job. Um, you know, whatever whatever their bots can't see, whatever their algorithms can't see, they've got a person in the subreddit to just point out all the posts that are
Funny you
violate.
say that, because I think there's a rule on our soccer. Obviously, with no football going on at the moment, it's not as much of an issue. But I think there was something that people noticed was that I think a streamable, it would be disabled in the UK between about 3 and 5 p.m. or something every Saturday, because obviously that's when users would post. We would end up posting sort of lots of clips of games that were going on. So to get around that, it was noticed that it was just streamable would just be blocked entirely in the UK from 3 until 5, because that was just a convenient way for them to get around it. So I think I'd use that as an example. I think there are people aware of sports subreddits that post clips and things because they know that issues can occur.
Just one more thing on this copyright discussion that we've had. One of the things that really affected not so much our cricket, but the overall cricket community on Reddit was when cricket streams got taken down. It was around the same time that Rufus mentioned that England West Indies series. So we got this targeted sort of. It wasn't just our cricket that was affected by all of a sudden copyright claims, and that was the reason behind which the moderation team had decided to become really vigilant about policing copyright on our subreddit, because there's a very real risk that it could get deleted. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that, because we do get people emailing in asking about, why was my post taken down and stuff like that. And, we wish it could be otherwise, but there's a very real threat that our whole subreddit could get deleted if we commit too much violation of it.
It's like, Foothill's completely right. It's something we really hate doing. If it's as sincere as we can make that sound, but ultimately we don't want to put subreddit at risk or anything like that, because with all these things, you're kind of playing a bit of a guessing game with what risk you can take. So it's rather just, we'd rather not take unnecessary risks. Honest.
Yes, as Rufus pointed out, our soccer, every time I go there and there is a link to a goal, which just literally happened seconds ago, and it's already been posted on our soccer. It just boils my blood that we cannot post stuff on our sub, right? And all the beautiful stuff that's been going on. Like, I cannot post Jimmy Anderson bowling an outswinger. How shit is that? While over at our soccer, they could just like post 5 mirrors of the same goal with
different
Spanish
angles.
commentary, with English commentary, with different angles. And
Also,
we can't
our
even
soccer's about Yeah, our soccer's about 10 times bigger than us anyway. So it's frustrating that it seems like rules are not applied evenly. And if you are listening to this, Spez, then bear that in mind. It's what we have to deal with ultimately. So we'd rather play it safe, just for just to be sure that we're not going to do anything that risk.
Gotcha. That was a very interesting topic. I believe we have a couple of more questions. I think Wikikeeper, do you want to introduce the next one?
Yeah. So talking of other subreddit, like you mentioned, our soccer, we have had a history of friction between our sports and our cricket. Do you guys can enlighten what happened, what was the outcome, and why do we still get hate on posting cricket on our sports?
Oh yeah, I think first of all it has to do with the attitude of the commenters on the common subscribers on our sports. They just don't like cricket and they disrespect it. So this all started, I guess, 5 years ago now. Back when there was a New Zealand tour of Australia and there was a Steve Smith catch, which we memed like crazy. You must have all seen the picture. It's the one with Steve Smith doing like a face plant as he took the catch. And,
Right.
we made a thread about that on our sports. And, it was just straight up disrespect of the sport. They were like, all these baseball fans, I'm guessing, Americans, they were like, oh, that's nothing. Catches like that get taken in baseball all the time. And that's just not the case. First of all, they have gloves in that sport, so it's easier to catch anything. And second of all, like, how often do you see someone diving like that far? It was a great catch at backward points. So, yeah, I think the main source of the friction between our subreddits is the disrespect. And it's not just cricket. We see it happen also with just sports that Americans don't get. So with rugby league, with Australian football. So AFL was also banned on our sports as well. They just won't accept any posts about AFL on it. And yeah, there's just a lot of bad blood between us, which I think goes back to the fundamental disrespect that they show us.
Is it just one person? So the person who's running our sports, which makes that kind of decision with cricket or AFL goes there, or is it more of a collective thing from their point of view?
There was one moderator in particular, I can't remember the name, who I think attracted a particular amount of...
I do remember
Expose
the name,
them.
but can we say his name?
No, it's fine. We just imply it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just imply.
Okay.
The moderator who could not be named.
Yeah. I think it started with our AFL when they started posting stuff to our sports, and what happened was that they banned heaps of posters from our AFL because, as Foothill said, they didn't probably get the sport. And what started happening was that the cricket season started right after that, and the Australian posters basically started talking about all the stuff that was going on. So people got interested that wanted to take part in it, I guess. And I have personally seen cricket posts over there which were removed, and every single comment on the post was removed. Doesn't matter if it was 100 or 20 or 30, all of the comments were removed. And they started doing that, and then I think we got a message from the admins that people from our cricket are basically trying to brigade our sports, and we should discourage that sort of behavior. So we went ahead and we did that, and then not so long ago, we got a message from the moderator. He sent a trolley message, trying to get a reaction out of us. But we didn't pay any attention. He's not worthy of it anyway.
From the sounds of it, they should just rename it American Sports because that's what it is.
Yes, absolutely. It is
Of course.
We've alluded to a lot already. Reddit is an American website, and inevitably that it means that the sports community is going to be very America-centric ultimately, and influences the attitudes towards sports that aren't big in America.
Right. Yeah, it's a sad situation.
I have this question about baseball, as Foothill was saying. I have only seen baseball catches, like kind of jumping and taking putting their back to the whatever that the wall is, and then taking the catch, and not actually diving on the ground to take a catch. I've never seen that. Maybe just because I haven't been exposed. But I wanted to ask if that's normal in baseball, like players diving for a catch.
Not that
No,
much.
you're
I
right. I
think
haven't seen it either. They just
no,
climb up
in
into
baseball,
the stands and catch the sixes. I mean, it's not a six if it's caught, I guess, but
Yeah,
I've never seen them dive around.
no. So what happens there is, I think the way the game works is like their approach is different. So instead of catch, they also have to like run out. In our cricket terms, they have to get the batsman who's running on second to third
yeah,
base. So that's also they have in mind. So instead of opportunity to losing that person out because that person is already ahead in the game. So if you're hitting the ball and the batsman goes from to the first base. So if you catch it, only that person is out. And if you're trying to dive and catch it, you may risk it that your first base batsman will get out, but your second, like the batsman who's on the second or third base, that person may get advantage of you falling down and try to get up and throw it. So the ball is live even after quote
the catch
unquote the
is
catch
taken.
is taken. So
Yeah,
that's why they usually don't take that risk of jumping around and try to lose that opportunity to run out the second or third base.
right.
Sorry, I'll just go ahead. I think the bat is important. Now they have like a cylindrical bat, and also only half the field is in play. There's no catches behind the stumps, so to speak. So if you look at cricket, a lot of the great catches are like they come off the outside edge, and they go to backward point, they go to slip, they go to these sorts of positions where the ball goes hard and low and fast because it's come off the edge, and that requires a diving catch. Now, in baseball, most of the fielders are like a mid-off and mid-on or extra cover, and they get the high balls, the outfield catches. So you don't see, I guess, there's no need for diving around.
Well,
Yeah.
one thing that doesn't impress me about
Yeah,
baseball
exactly.
pitching, far too many full tosses. I think they need to work on their lengths a bit more. The
Yeah.
wicket
Yeah,
keepers stand up to the stumps even when they're bowling about 100 miles an hour. So I suppose that's something.
Exactly.
I was about to say that as well. I saw a video on YouTube, like it was in my suggestions. Josh Butler and Alex Hales play baseball,
I've
and I
seen
didn't watch it yet. Yeah, I didn't watch it yet, but I'm guessing that it would be. I'm not sure what the normal speeds are in baseball. Like even if they're bowling full tosses and they're obviously chucking,
They're chucking.
I'm not sure what
I think they're allowed to
what
chuck,
the normal
but yes,
Bloody chucker.
what
they
the-
normally go around like 90 plus to 110. I think that's miles
So
per hour.
usually,
Right. It's not that
I-
much. Like
Yeah.
our athletes can bowl that by moving their arms around, like proper action. They
Not
just chuck
chucking.
it.
Okay.
something to bear in mind. I think baseball pitches are usually standing closer than 22 yards to the batter, so I imagine there's less chance for it to decelerate by the time it pitches them.
Right. Okay. I think I'm going to keep that in the podcast because it's very funny and interesting, but we may have
Yeah.
deviated from the topic.
Yes, just a little.
Yeah. Right. So, final normal question before we move on to your favorite posts. Can one of you give us a bit of a summary of the history of Reddit cricket, how it started, and like the kind of the journey it's come from? And I believe after that, we have got a comment from EyesAllOnFire to supplement that.
I think I can have a go at this. So yeah, when I joined personally, it was in around. I joined our cricket. It was in around, I think, September, October 2014, and the subreddit barely had about 10,000 subscribers. I mean, it had been around since about 2008. I think is when it started, and what like we found web archives of. But growth was very slow for those first 6 or so years. And like I say, by 2014, we were only on about 10,000 subscribers. But I think, and it was fairly quiet and all that sort of thing. But I think what really catalyzed the growth of the subreddit was probably a mixture of the Australia-India series 2014-15. That was really big to load more new fans in. But in particular, the World Cup that immediately followed. We grew significantly in that time to, I think it might have even, we gained probably like a good 10,000 or so subscribers from memory just then. And I think that for me was the moment that it really became a much more popular cricket forum. After that point, because then other big series like the Ashes later that year, and Australia home series as well, where because we have a significant proportion of the user base being from either Australia or India, these series often continue more growth. And then 2016, 17, it was kind of similar sorts of growth. But it was, I think, the 2017 Champions Trophy again was another big moment for us. In fact, most major tournaments are. It's just kept. The growth has been getting faster and faster, but I think it really went into overdrive in the last year's World Cup when we had a significant amount of growth in a very short space of time, and it was quite fun to adapt to all the new users that we had, and some of whom I'm sure have left immediately afterwards. But it's really evolved from a much more. I think there was a lot more. I suppose you could say it was a lot calmer back when I started. I would say. Simply on the virtue that there were fewer users there at the time. So lots of whereas now you have such a bigger contingent of often more casual users as well. To sound incredibly snobbish for a second, there's a lot. I think a lot of the discussion is a lot more urgent and fast, and a lot more maybe emotional sometimes as well. I think simply because of the number of people that you have in place at times. There's still a wide range of different conversations and views. And like other controversy, like the our sports controversy was time when we got a bit more attention from wider Reddit as well, which was quite nice. And when we've ended up on subreddit drama 3 times as well from memory, but that's maybe for another day.
Oh,
that gets us quite a lot of attention as well.
I don't know what that's about. Please do explain afterwards.
I'll explain. That'll be something for later, but that's also probably when we've had more attention from wider Reddit as well, even if it was just a day from nerds on other subreddit, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, it's exponential.
Not bad to give a high level. If you want to just give a blurb, that should be fine.
Was that sorry?
If you just want to give a blurb about it, I mean that should be fine in this episode as well.
Sure. So for those who don't know, subreddit drama is a meta subreddit where drama and disputes and big arguments in subreddits are often linked for people to sort of discuss on and comment on. If you can be like above it for a moment and sort of laugh at how angry everyone's getting. I'm a subscriber as well, so I can feel very superior. It's great fun, and there have been a couple of incidents which were particularly controversial. I think these were more in the wider cricketing world, where we had particularly hostile discussions happen, and they were linked. They were linked in subreddit drama. So you get an influx of people from what the wider Reddit metasphere who will come on in and just see what we're all about, which can be nice, I suppose.
Interesting. So how do you guys look at since you're talking about as a mods, that's one way when we get a lot of attention. There's sometimes our cricket specifically, our cricket post reaches the front page, right? Our top 50 or top 100 of our all. That's also probably brings in a lot of attention. I see a lot of comments whenever some of the posts that reaches in the top and hey, I don't know cricket, but I kind of like it. Hey, I don't know what this game is all about. And a lot of those questions. How do you guys handle that?
For something that reaches our all, only some of the top, obviously only the top posts of all time for us, because If something is, ironically, if something cricket related is posted on our sports and it takes off, it's inevitably going to get more reach than it does here, simply because our sports is much bigger than we are. But in terms of ourselves, it's really just like trying to. Thankfully, it's not too bad. Getting the hordes from our all isn't usually particularly nasty to manage. I think it's just like moderating a busier match thread sometimes. There's nothing different I find I have to do in that case if that situation happens.
Sure. Arg, I believe that you have a comment from EyesAllOnFire in regards to the history of the post. The history of the subreddit. Do you want to go ahead and share that?
Yeah, so EyesAllOnFire is a pretty old mod. 9 years he has been serving the community of our cricket. So I'll just quote him directly. The growth has been great to be a part of, and I think it has mostly mirrored the growth of Reddit in general. Cricket is a bit different to most sports in such that it's a year-round activity without a defined season as such. So it seems there's always something happening. Most noticeable for me, the years has definitely been how much the sub grows with every international tournament and big series, especially the World Cups. One noticeable change that has come with more traffic visibility, there's much more interaction with the sport itself now with things like AMAs, sponsorship of Iceland cricket, a few official accounts like the ICC account dropping by, etc. The attention isn't always positive, unfortunately, having to take down pretty much all highlight clips and GIFs because of the aggressive copyright claims has probably been the most disappointing thing I've seen since modding the sub. Either that or the constant drama when anything controversial happens between India and Pakistan, but that's mostly just sad because of the history and goes far beyond just the sub. Most memorable modding thing I'd say would be the Aussie Sandpaper Gate saga. There were like 6 or 7 mega threads about that, and it just exploded at the time. End of quote.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. It's a very good thing raised. The multiple mega threads just for that one incident is that was quite entertaining. I'd forgotten how different. I should have mentioned this before. That was a fun time to be moderating. There was so much stuff that was flying in and being reported. That was a very particularly busy couple weeks or so.
I still have a screenshot somewhere saved where I had 15 or 20 posts saying the same thing about sandpaper, the whole sandpaper thing. And when Stephen Smith's press conference, that interview had like 15 or 20 posts that I just single-handedly removed. It was actually the busiest time, I would say, with regards to removing all the posts, all the duplicate stuff, and people were trying to flame bait heaps during that time. And going on to the question about the history of the subreddit, I think that the growth increased a lot after a lot of people say that introduction of cheaper internet in India. It was just like we got a peak of subscribers from there. But at the start, when I joined it around 2012, I've been on Reddit since 2011, but around 2012 I joined Cricket, and it looked like as if you moved into a new suburb with like 5 houses, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, over the years it gets built up and more people join. And you see the subreddit grow. Even now we have 172,000, I think, 172,000 subscribers at the moment. But I would say that there's a very good chance that 30,000 of those accounts, the dead or the troll accounts or the spam accounts that we banned. But yeah, as EyesAllOnFire said, we got the growth, the most number of subscribers during the World Cups, right before the World Cups, and it was mostly, I think, in subscribers because Australians used to the most number of fans cricket, Australian. But now India has overtaken that.
Right. Okay. So I didn't know that. I was under the impression that it was majority Aussie, and then India afterwards. But apparently, India's fans have overtaken the Aussies, which I suppose was inevitable at some point. But yeah, I didn't know that had officially happened.
Yeah, I think the last consensus we had more Australian, and in general, we could just see by the pattern of posts, see a lot of sad posts by subscribers, which is a great thing. I absolutely love them, although I don't get most of them. But I absolutely love their love of the game, and the amount of stat posts those guys make is just and the amount of discussion Australian summer, you'd still have threads where it discuss more than Australian, because that's the time when there are more Australian subscribers on the sub, the casuals as well. But yeah, Indians have definitely taken over in that regard.
Sure. This doesn't necessarily have to be on the podcast, but Rufus, do you think that English fans are fairly represented on the subreddit?
Do you mean in terms of quantity of them, or
I think quantity. Yeah, I think they are more vocal than most.
Yeah, there's a reason. There's quite a good number of English supporters that I've obviously seen and spoken to. I'd say they're in terms of demographics, I'd say they were either third or fourth or so, because there are a lot of. I mean, what I found from the last survey we did is that whilst there are lots of Pakistan supporters who use the subreddit, a lot of them are expats who work in other countries. So the actual number of people who live in Pakistan who browse the subreddit is actually a lot lower than you might think it is.
That's true. Yes.
In terms of English supporters, there's a reasonable number of them. Although I think they are, I mean, certainly more than West Indies, who have, sadly, we don't have a lot of representation of them. And with lots of the other less well followed countries, I think it's a shame. But I'd say there's a decent set of English supporters in general, and we're one of the more represented ones. Just not as much as Australia and India.
Sure. And is there a reason why? There's so many Aussies? Because population-wise, right? I think Oz has a population of 35 million. Obviously, for Hill probably knows more than us, but
it's 25 million, but I'm not sure.
25. Yeah. Is that around that? Yes.
Yeah, and the UK has a population of 65 million, and obviously India has a billion people. So, it's quite interesting to see.
Delhi has a bigger population than Australia.
What? Delhi on its own? Wow.
Delhi has 28 million people.
Wow, I did not know that.
I think there's another stat, something like that. I think one of the biggest districts in Mumbai which is about population about 4.5 million, which is bigger than New Zealand's entirely. This is capita comparisons is mind blowing.
Yeah. So my question is that how come that? Why is it hit the Aussies have the Reddit fever for cricket much more than per capita than others from the looks of it? I could be mistaken.
Right. So there's two reasons. First of all, you have to look at the overall Reddit uptake. It's very popular in Australia as far as social media or online discussion forums go. A lot of Australians use Reddit. And the second thing is you have to look at the popularity of cricket as a sport, which it is the number one sport in Australia in terms of nationwide following and year-long following. So you've got Aussie Rules, which is popular in the south of the country, but that's only during the winter months. You've got Rugby League as well, which is popular in the northern states, but also only in the winter months. But one sport that everyone in the country likes at all times of the year is cricket. And I'll let Rufus answer this about England, but I don't think that's the case with cricket status in England.
Sorry, adding to Foothail's comment, I would say that one more point, which is free to air cricket in Australia, which recently they took it off free to air cricket. I personally think that's a big part of it. For example, if you're living in the UK and you want to watch, you want to join a match thread, you now have to find a legal or an illegal stream first to watch the match, and then you come into the match thread. While in Australia, if you want to join the match thread, I just turn on the TV, put it a channel line, and just join the match thread. That's it's quite easy to do that. I think that's a big part of that's why you saw. In my opinion, there was lesser participation during the Big Bash matches this year because the Saturday matches,
Sports, yeah.
they were all on Fox Cricket exclusively and not free to air. So you would see less people on Saturdays, or people who were using either some stream from a random subreddit. But on a normal day, you'd still see a lot of subscribers. So it's basically the free to air part, which I personally think that affects this thing a lot.
Yeah, and to follow up on England, it's obviously something we don't have the privilege of having anymore, and not for 15 years now. I mean, I think Foothill raises a good point about the popularity of individual sports having quite an impact, because there are plenty of UK people who use Reddit, for sure. I mean, like, a lot of the UK-based subs have good numbers of subscribers to them. And I think our soccer has a very big continue. I think I would be surprised if the majority of users wasn't England fans for the most part. Cricket, in terms of popularity as a sport in general in the UK, it's fairly popular. I don't think it's as popular as it once was. There is still a significant set of people who you say, do you watch the cricket? It's still this, how about it's all boring and everything else. So, and I think lack of exposure it has done not help that, and I think it is still perceived as a bit of a upper class sport in some areas, not kind of the more all society encompassing one that it's seen as in sort of the countries it's more popular in. But again, I think that's partly down to access to equipment and stuff, which is something a lot of less affluent schools don't have. But that's a bigger popularity.
One thing I did notice, Rufus, is that when the IPL was airing from 2011 to 2016 or something, it was available on ITV4, which is a free channel.
ITV4,
yeah. And I just found it really interesting. People who'd not really paid attention to cricket, they become diehard RCB fans just because it was there, available, ready for them to watch, right? So exactly what Rom said.
Makes it even on a channel, even if it's buried away on a channel like ITV4, that's enough exposure for to make a difference. Because I know people who watch some of the games on ITV4. I mean, it was a couple of years ago. I think the CPL was shown on Dave or something random, with a 12-hour delay. But even that would made it easier to find than lots of other cricket that you would have otherwise missed.
Yeah, it is a shame that it's not broadcasted publicly or readily available. Just it would make a huge difference, and I know people at Sky would say that they've done a lot of work for cricket, but they're obviously out there to make money at the end of the day, aren't they? So
yeah, I think it's true in both cases that Sky have put a lot of money into English cricket, and it has made a positive difference to things like individual performance. But at the same time, it has dramatically increased exposure and people and the actual uptake of people picking up in the first place. So I think you can say, although I think generally Sky having the exclusive rights has been a force for bad, I think you can acknowledge the good things that their money has done at the same time, whilst it would be better if they could share their coverage with terrestrial broadcasting if possible.
Sure. And one last point on this is I just remember in 2005, the Ashes, when it was free to air, the cricket fever was crazy. It was so strong. I just missed that kind of atmosphere because
it was the perfect storm in many ways. It was probably the best Test series that people have ever seen, combined with wall-to-wall terrestrial coverage. And it was the absolute cocktail for cricket because that was the only few months in my life that I can remember cricket probably being more popular than football was, or at least level with popularity in the UK. Like when I was about 11 or 10 or 11, and you had cricket in the playground all the time. It was mad. That did feel like it was a big opportunity missed in the big picture for cricket to really. I mean, I think after England's World Cup win, I think there was a slight increase in the spread of it, and especially after Headingley and Stokes' exploits and stuff last year, it did feel like there was a bit more awareness of it in a way, which I thought was actually really encouraging. And of course, because the World Cup final was on terrestrial telly, thankfully, that's helped too. But I almost feel like it could be more. There'd be more of an opportunity if there was more exposure. Because if Stokes' innings had been on Channel 5 or 4 or whatever, it would have had even more of an impact than it did. And the fact that I think that made a dent, as much of a dent as it did, sort of hidden away on satellite telly. It's almost frustrating in a way, because I feel like that could really have been could have had more of an impact than it did.
Sure. Completely get that. But yep, I think we've gone on a tangent plenty. And yeah, thank you so much for all of your obvious contribution to this, Foothill, Roms, and Rufus. It's really much been appreciated. So I think like the final segment is we can talk about your favorite posts of all time. Perhaps maybe bring up one controversial post which has required your moderation duties to a large extent, and perhaps maybe just one of your favorite posts in general, or anything, or maybe a shit post. I'll leave it up to you guys. It's absolute free for all. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, I can have something for this. So, I mean, in terms of my best stats post, I mean, a number of options were I thought of here. Like anything that Sepulchre of Azrael has posted definitely deserves to be in the best stats posts section, because his efforts in compiling all these remarkable analyses of stuff that even like Cricinfo and CricBuzz can't even come close to, I think we're really lucky to have that sort of thing there. So there was one in particular by him that I always really enjoyed, which was I think it was the no-hit Rohit line, when he was analysing Rohit Sharma's batting performances in one-day cricket, and it became almost noticed in the sub afterwards that after he passed 20, would go on to smash 100 most of the time, but he gets out early quite a lot as well, and that is something that had a huge that caught on so much in the subreddit as well, and yet it was such a great piece of observation at the same time. So it was something I really enjoyed that one. In terms of the best shit post, I remember was it's quite a recent one, but I did enjoy the guy who got that tattoo on his ankle last year when Australia didn't outright win the Ashes series. Something about James Anderson is my lover and Stuart Broad my rock, or whatever it was, something like that. I can't remember the exact wording, but I thought that was quite a recent one, but that was quite entertaining. When he pulled through on that one. The best, I found it hard to choose a general post. I mean, my favourite individual match thread is probably the day one of the Trent Bridge 20 match. When England bowled Australia out for 60, because that was, I was laughing at practically every comment that was flying around there. If you want to feel like an Australian for an afternoon, walk into an empty field, stay there for a minute, and then leave again, sort of stuff. Which is so much. There was so much that I was laughing so much. That was probably one of the most entertaining. Yeah, and then I think it was one during the 2015 World Cup when after England got bowled out by Tim Southey, his 7 for 33. There was a post titled something like, the only way things could have been worse for England today, and it was someone who had superimposed a Mitchell Johnson moustache on his face, and that made me laugh quite a lot. I think one of the nicest, this is one of the, I think to end on that one of the nicest posts I remember seeing was this was admittedly just a repost of something that appeared on, I think, Cricinfo's Instagram page, but there was that quote from Brendan McCullum when he talks about how he felt during his innings in the 2015 World Cup final, how he'd built, which I thought it was just such a lovely quote, and there was some really nice discussion beneath it. And he talks about how he sort of built up his whole life for it, and then he forgot in the moment. He forgot the one thing he forgot was to watch the ball, and then he obviously missed it. When he says he got back into the changing room, he started laughing because otherwise he'd be crying or something like that. So I just thought it was a really fantastic description of how you deal with success and failure and such big moments. And it led to some really nice discussion about it underneath. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, Brendan McCullum is a gem.
Great human being. I think loved by all. I don't think anyone dislikes him. I could be mistaken.
No.
I
thought that was.
Yeah, I think MS Dhoni doesn't like him. That's the one person I don't think he likes, because I remember because of one IPL or something, he was like, "Oh, all the experienced players just keep failing all the time," and I think he was.
Oh yes, that was that. It was that CSK game when where they had to chase some mad target, and then Rhino was smashing it all over the place. And then I think after the power play, there was something like 100 for 1 or something mad. And then first ball after the power play, McCullum ran Rhino out, and the innings never really got on the track immediately. And then he was obviously really cross in the post-match conference. He was saying, I think he was calling out Brendan McCullum and David Hussey as well, who also had played slow and innings.
Right, yeah. But, I mean, he can't comment now because it's all he does himself. But okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. At the time, Dhoni was still in his prime, so I can understand. It made a bit more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, awesome, Rufus. Thanks so much for that.
All right, I'll go ahead with my favorite posts of all time. There used to be a user called Cockroach Clitoris on.
Can we just take a second to appreciate the beauty of that name?
Yes, it is a beautiful username. Ian, for those of you who don't know him, I'm not sure if he's still active on the sub or not. This guy used to post GIFs back in the day. By back in the day, I mean 2012, 13, 14. That time, that was quite rare to have that sort of stuff in the sub. And during the South Africa tour of Australia and the 2013-14 Ashes, this guy basically just posted every wicket and all the bouncers that Mitchell Johnson was bowling. And what he did was, at the end of a test match, he just put all of those giveaways, arranged them on the according to the scorecard, how the wickets fell down and all that stuff. He made a huge post the 5 days of a test match, and he got gold on the post, and that was the post that inspired me to actually go on gifts for the sub, because it's also a bit of a personal, because I used to have a job where I used to sit around a lot and nothing basically for a long period of time. And I used to go to the match threads, and I used to think that, what would be great if someone just started posting every wicket in the match thread. And he started doing that. So once he stopped doing it, he didn't do it for a long time. So once he stopped doing it, I thought, I might as well try it. So I tried, and I got a very good response from the community, of course. Then I started making them, and I made them for like 3 years, I think. So yeah, that was my favorite post on the sub, because this is, of course, sub got very popular. I think he got like 100 upvotes or like 200 upvotes on that post, and it was really popular. My favorite stats post, most of them go over my head. I just can't, I open the post, see the person has put an effort, I upvote them, and I just move along, But but as Rufus said, the no hit bro hit line, he reminded me of a very good post. I read that as well, and I think that was a very, very good post. But most posts by that user, he's been contributing quite a lot, and over the years, doing that since 2013. And I don't think he does it a lot anymore, but whenever he does it, it's really, really good. Like you could compare it to a Cricket Info article or a CrickBuzz article, which really nice thing to have on the sub. For
It's like
favorite,
remarkable. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's just like
go ahead.
something you notice about him. Like he's trying to compare, analyzing Virat Kohli's career through like Z scores away from the median of the mean of the time. Against some meme or something. Instead, you feel like your talents are being wasted here. Get hired by cricket.
Yeah. I think he actually got published a few times as well.
Yes, I think he's posted some of his stuff.
Yeah. I did talk to him back in the day on this thing called Carrot Chat that got quite famous for a while, and then it got taken down because I'm guessing it's using the user's data a lot or something like that happened.
If he's listening, then your posts are great, man. Keep you return.
Yeah. That he still posts them, I think, every now and then. But yeah, they're all good. With shit posts, I would go a bit further, and I would say that I have really enjoyed the shit posting the commentators and the cricket players have tried to do in real life instead of on a subreddit. For example, during the last Big Bash season, Damien Fleming he was commentating and he was going on about how a certain bowler has been kept out, and he goes on to say, I thought he's been kept out by that South African guy. What's his name? And takes a 10-second pause and then says, "Oh yeah, it's Dale Steyn." I'm like, wow, did you just refer to Dale Steyn as that South African guy? Like, he's an all-time great bowler, and that is some real shit posting going on there.
That really is the avenue of apprehension right there.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Those things are cringy as hell. No matter how much he tries to force them on us, it's not gonna happen, Flemmo. No.
Better than Sidhu in terms of cringiness, but not much.
Man,
better.
Sidhu's amazing.
Yeah.
Don't insult Sidhu.
There's a light coming at the end of the tunnel for India, but unfortunately it's that of an oncoming train which will run them over.
Yeah. One more thing that I'd like to mention is when you guys remember Virat Kohli was interviewed by a random social media, I don't know what it was, and he went on to say that if you don't like Indian batsmen, leave India. And of course, obviously it backfired. And the next day he posts on Twitter, he goes, "Hey guys, I think I'll stick to getting trolled, and trolling is not for me." And I just laughed out for a solid 2 minutes. I was like, dude, that you did not mean it sarcastically. I watched the interview. He just was trying to backstep, and it was just hilarious that it was
just a prank,
unintentional shit post. Yeah, it was an unintentional shit post by Virat Kohli. I'd say that
you've been given a warning. I'd have given him a warning, possibly. Not a 3-day ban.
The real Virat Kohli on Twitter. Sorry, on Reddit.
Yeah, that was quite funny. But in general, shit posts, I think there's to choose from. Most of the times you'll see an Australian user, he'll write 4 paragraphs, and the thing is that is so good that you read all of it and then you upload and you just laugh. And I think one of those posts, I can't remember which one, of course, but I think they are the most hilarious ones. I think Australians in general are the most hilarious people on the subreddit.
Sorry, so I'd like to go ahead with sharing my favorite posts. And unlike the other two, unfortunately, I'm not much of a statistician or a general post person. I'm a shit poster at heart. That's the reason I joined the subreddit, because I like a laugh. And so I'd just like to share a couple of my favorite shit posts. First of all, and I think everyone will agree, this is one of the most iconic moments in our subreddit's history. I think the thread was called, or the post was called, "We Have Come Full Circle." And the content of that was the inside part of Kohli's bat pasta, which was shared for the first time on our subreddit, in that in that post, and I think just for the impact that copy pasta has had on our subreddit, that post deserves to be immortalized.
Yeah, that was from like the Asia Cup in 2016 originally, wasn't it? Where I think it was a Bangladesh fan on Facebook was screenshotted with this rubber bat and everything else, and it sort of just snowballed from there.
Isn't that where that meme came from? Like pig 3 equals to BCCI equals to ICC.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
And the second thing, what I think is the best thing we've ever done as a subreddit, as a collective, would have to be Wankhede Stadium big screen shitposting.
Yeah,
this is back in the this is back on the 2016 England tour of India, and at the Wankhede Stadium, I don't know how they allowed this, but anybody in the world could like send in a message, and it would be displayed up on the big screen. And there was a lot of our cricket memes that made it onto the big screen. There was one about David Warner's infamous OLED ad. And quite a few others besides that. It was fantastic to see that we had managed to get onto the big screen of a live test match, and possibly some of the players might have read the shitpost that we made.
I don't know why sort of sports stadiums still do those, because they always go wrong. There's always people who just post stupid stuff unless they're moderated. So yeah, I think they'd have got the idea by now.
I'm like 100% sure that the person who was actually putting them on screen was also a Redditor.
Some inside information there. Love it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been possible,
Okay, brilliant. I think that was a very nice collection of posts. Anything else you guys want to add before we kind of wrap up?
I'm surprised in terms of like posts. I'm surprised Football hasn't mentioned. He's the one who gave us Rain Pereira as well. That was quite a that's stuck around as well.
Well, I don't like to toot my own horn. Plus, that was just like a stupid comment. It wasn't, a proper post.
It's just that stuck around as its own meme as well, which is quite entertaining.
I remember that. I absolutely remember that.
Right.
I think especially around the World Cup last year, with all those rain-affected games early on, and Sri Lanka's general underperformance in a lot of the games. It was their best player sometimes.
He got us 4 points.
Before Sri Lanka beat England, obviously, so I should probably mention.
Yeah, well, I think that about wraps it up, guys. I mean, you guys have been incredible guests, Foothill, Roms, and Rufus. You guys are all doing an amazing job, and thank you so much for sharing all that information and giving literally 3 hours of your time because someone was late, and that may have been me, but still, thank you very much for everything. If you have anything you want to,
thank you for having
anything
us.
you want to add, feel free. And we'd love to have you back as discuss some other topics or have you on a more regular basis. So yeah, feel free to sign off, guys.
I'd definitely be delighted to contribute on a more regular basis. It's been great fun
for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to also join in wherever you guys think that it's okay for a mod to join in.
Yeah,
I'd be there.
Or a Pakistan fan. I think an India-Pakistan type of episode could be pretty interesting to do down the line. A respectful,
it could be,
spicy episode, But yes, it would be pretty awesome.
It will get spicy, wherever there are Indians and Pakistanis, it just gets spicy.
Automatically.
It doesn't matter intentionally or unintentionally, it does get spicy.
For sure. Well, that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this special episode where we've got the wonderful mods on. And until next time, take care. Make sure you join our Discord. Make sure you check out the past episodes. And I think that's enough plugging. Have a nice day. Have a nice week. Stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.